We live?
We are live.
Good evening, everybody. I see we have 3 attendees. I think we're waiting on a few more, so give it another couple minutes before we get started. But right off the bat, I appreciate you guys taking the time to join us tonight. So if you could just bear with us for another 5 minutes or so to see if we have some others joining us. You're muted, my friend. All systems go?
Yes, we are live again. Sorry.
Great. Well, good evening, everyone. We're going to get started. Hopefully, a few more of the people who had registered will attend, but I don't want to delay too much longer. First off, I really appreciate everybody, taking the time to participate in this effort. My name's Rob Robinson. I'm the Long Range Planning Manager for the City of Gaithersburg, and I'll be moderating this evening. A few things up front. It's a very small group, so we're going to start traditionally using the raised hand function when the questions go out if you wish to speak. If we find we have a very robust dialogue, we'll unmute everyone, but to try to keep stuff somewhat organized. Just so you know, the chat feature is turned off, but the question and answer feature is turned on. So if you have questions, but with such a small group, you may be able just to ask the question and we can get right to it. Before we get started, just based upon the raised hand thing, we have a little video we'd like to show you. So Kirk, if you want to go ahead and pop that up.
Good evening. If you've connected to the meeting tonight via Zoom and you're on a desktop or a laptop and you wish to make a public comment, we can't currently see or hear you. What you need to do, please, is wiggle your mouse around and look towards the bottom center of your screen. You should see a raise hand button. Go ahead and click on that now for us, please. Alternatively, if you've connected in via telephone, you can press *9.
All righty. So with that, I'm going to share my screen so we can begin. I just received a question. To start, everybody's muted. Once you use the raised hand, we'll unmute you. And we currently have 4 participants in this panel. So I'm going to give a little presentation, give you some background, turn it over to you. When you begin to participate, let us know who you are. While I can see the names, we can share it with everyone. So again, the purpose of this is discuss the future of Lakeforest Mall. On your screen now is an aerial of Lakeforest Mall, including the stormwater management ponds. The entire mall is, approximately 100 acres. But what we really think of as the mall, this interior part, is over 80 acres. The area in yellow is the location of the existing transit center, which is really just a glorified bus shelter. The blue dots highlight the entrance and exit points into the mall, and you can see all the various signalized intersections around. So at a glance, looking around within a half mile of that Lakeforest Mall property, there's almost 7,000 dwelling units with almost 16,000 people living within a half mile of the mall. On the non-residential side, over 1.5 million square feet of general and medical office exists, almost 1.5 million of various retail, stores and restaurants, and approaching 400,000 square feet of industrial storage and warehouse. So I bring all this up because this sort of sets up the context for what we're looking at and really what's already out there. So some stuff from us as a planning staff, some of the things we look at is anytime we have a large project like this is, where is the city going? So as you can see on here, the city's forecast to add, 20,000 new people by 2045 to get us up to almost 90,000 residents. The city will need, between 6,700 and 9,700 additional housing units to meet that growth by 2045. And the city is forecast to add approximately 20,000 new jobs by 2045, totaling 66,000. And I think one thing to note, with the mall itself, as you probably all, the pandemic didn't help things, but the mall was in decline even ahead of time. Retail is and will remain oversupply, which means there's way too much retail and not enough people to support it. So it's going to somewhat retract. So Lake Forest offers a unique opportunity as we try to grapple with how do we address all these projections and city policies and desires. And, the red highlighted area is, essentially the boundaries of what we just showed you for that approximately 80 acres. So you can see from a single family neighborhood to a really dense urban mixed use. I mean, this is taken from New York, suburban mixed use to urban mixed use. This is in Washington, D.C. So you can see that 80 acres provides a lot of different opportunities depending upon where it goes. So that leads me into what is our effort? So we're doing a master plan. And the goal of the master plan for this one, at the end of the day, you're not going to see a design plan. So you're not going to see something that says, and in this block, you're going to see this type of use at this many stories with this much square feet. Or in this block, you're going to see this many residential units of this type, with this maximum height. The goal of this master plan, given a lot of the uncertainty that's in the world now and going forward, is going to be more an expression of the vision and goals that we'd like to see for a redevelopment of Lake Forest Mall. And included in that is an examination of elements to include, or maybe more importantly, exclude, to try to achieve this vision. So where, a detailed plan would say Block A, will have anywhere from 50 to 100 townhomes. The effort that we're doing will have more of a discussion that, 25% of any residential that comes in should be townhomes, or no more than 25. So it's a much higher level look as we move into things. So the goal of this panel and the various focus groups and the surveys is really to pick your mind about what your thoughts are related to this vision and the elements. I'm going to give you 3 questions. Hopefully you saw them. These are really to spur discussion. As we mentioned on the registration page, this is not a debate. We're interested in hearing from everyone, so I'd like everyone to participate. And we're not going to argue back and forth. We value everybody's opinions, and really we've heard in some previous ones, people were concerned, well, I'm afraid this is a little crazy. We want to hear crazy. We want to leave no stone unturned as we go through this exercise. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off now. Again, if you like to answer it, please use your raise your hand function. Kirk will then unmute you. And then, as I said, if we get to a rapidly free-flowing dialogue and everybody's respectful, we'll just unmute everyone and go with that. So with the first question is, which of the following do you value most for a Lake Forest redevelopment? Is it increased housing opportunities, increased employment opportunities, new jobs, established connectivity with and amenities for the surrounding neighborhood? Or is there some other aspect that you think should be, a guiding element or vision for the Lake Forest redevelopment, should it not be a mall? And with that, I'll open up the floor. So I'm looking forward to meeting you and hearing from you.
Yeah, hi. I'm leaning towards employment opportunities in the sense that I envision this area to be attracting research and development, so Silicon Valley kind of thing. So with the technical advancement, more and more research or more and more technical companies can come in and they can flourish here and create more employment opportunities for the residents.
Great. Anybody else?
Biotech already had.
Hi, Donna. I see you're unmuted.
Yes.
Can you give me your notebook on my cell phone so I can take a picture?
Yeah, this is Donna again. I would agree with the comment that was just made, seeing that how we're sort of in a biotech corridor. It would be, it would have more research. I respectfully disagree about too much retail, that we're over retailed. Right now, if you want to go to, any really type of shopping venue, your choice is like Montgomery Mall, basically, or the small mini malls. So I would like to see some retail restaurants like that. And I also like your choice C, establish connectivity with and amenities with the surrounding neighborhoods, as I live in the surrounding neighborhood.
Oh, great. So Donna, before you move on, for C, what are you thinking? What sort of amenities are you envisioning? You know, that could, you know,
I
help
like
this redevelopment join with the surrounding community.
I like the idea of parks and green space, and you know, I feel like a lot of I'll just make a generalization of the area has been more of a dumping ground. And with
Mhm.
the little lake that's already there, is in the lake in Lake Forest, I would love to see sort of like a miniature uh, pedestrian walk like you would have in Rio type thing.
Mhm.
Uh, Something attractive, you know, and that would make people want to go there.
So,
That
do
was.
you see additional parks and paths, or just, you know, using the areas that already have the existing, you know, ponds?
Oh, the more green space, the better.
Okay, great.
I would think that would be great because the area is so built up. It's a very high density housing. You know, it backs up to cider mill apartments and all that.
Hmm.
If you go one street behind cider mill, which is mid-county, that's all very high density townhomes and that type of building. I think in Gaithersburg and the whole area in general, if there were housing, what I would like to see more of is what I call the missing middle, being
Gotcha.
not the high rises, not the
Uh-huh.
single family McMansions, maybe a 1,500 square foot house that are more like villas or carriage houses, something senior community that, you know, could purchase homes but have a built-in commonality. That's what I would like to see.
Awesome, awesome. I saw some other hands raised. So Kirk, if we could maybe get someone who hasn't spoken yet. Jessica, hi, how are you?
Hi there. I'm well. How are you guys doing tonight?
Great.
I just kind of want to characterize myself a little bit. We're a married family, 2 young kids in the Gaithersburg school system. I would like to see consideration for some additional schools. I know there's some current
Mm-hmm.
school and boundary studies going on right now, and it leaves several of our elementary schools in the area over 100%. And that's with building an existing new elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to that, I agree with Donna about more places to kind of be outside. I think one of the benefits of the way that Lakeforest is utilized now is there's a lot of gathering ground for fairs and festivals and parades and things like that. And I want to make sure that the accessibility to use the space in that fashion doesn't go away. I wouldn't mind seeing a Rockville Town Square. Um,
Expand a little bit more. What do
sure.
you like about it, and what do you think would translate well to a redeveloped Lake Forest Mall?
I like having an area with a gathering space.
Mm-hmm.
I think in a lot of the neighborhoods and the townhomes in the area, you know, there's some very dense neighborhoods and there's some very small neighborhoods. And what those lack is a large enough green gathering space for the community to really get together. And I would enjoy that kind of thing.
So building off sort of what Donna and Kamal had mentioned, what sort of uses would go with this? I mean, do you see potentially a large housing component, or should the emphasis be on employment? And while we talked about R&D, is everybody sort of talking about, you know, trying to create a new biotech campus? Because I don't know how many single users are out there, or are we looking for a mix of employment type things?
I think based on the community, you would need a mix of employment. I would like to see the type of structure or structures that might gather some of the folks that normally have to go all the way into DC, being right here at the end of the red line, and move some of those jobs out here, or at least create a space where some of those jobs would come here. So I think, as Kamal was saying, you know, kind of looking at technology is a great way to kind of provide that accessibility.
So is it safe to say
I
so
also,
far, and maybe Kirk, seeing how this is going, maybe we can unmute everyone, but be aware, you know, bad language, any of that, we'll have to mute everybody again. But it seems like we have a very robust dialogue going, so I don't want to waste time with the hand raising aspect. This mix of employment, so is it safe to sort of assume that maybe the retail restaurants, maybe serve as an ancillary, almost amenity function to potentially a more different sector employment use, like with the R&D or biomed or something like that, as opposed to, you know, oh, we have one little, you know, office here, but lots and lots of retail.
I think what I was kind of picturing is kind of along the lines of the Rio, the Crown, the Rockville Town Square, where, I mean, you will need some shops and some restaurants to kind of support the offices that are around there. But instead of having people, you know, have an in-campus restaurant, that type of thing, you're providing job opportunities for folks by having, you know, kind of the cornerstone restaurants like you would in a town square. Okay,
great. Great. Anybody else?
Yeah, I second Jessica exactly. That more technology corridor kind of, you envision it. We have to have all the supporting infrastructure and supporting ancillary services with it.
Do you guys feel it's good, you know, for the idea of a community to basically have this mix of levels of jobs, you know, from the minimum wage to up to, you know, technical professional jobs?
Yes, based on the data that I don't have access to right now, but I believe you have. The variety of educational level as well as expertise would dictate kind of what kind of technology company would you attract.
Well, it's not just the technology, it's, you know, these other uses, because I think, you know, that potentially ties into, you know, Donna's comments about, you know, also serving as, you know, something that can benefit, you know, the greater immediate region too. So I think that, you know, more opportunities, you know, obviously advance, you know, greater engagement. With this, anybody else have any thoughts? So we've talked about, you know, we seem to feel parks and all are important. Schools are important. One of the things maybe I want to bring up, and Kamal, maybe this goes into your statement. So as I mentioned, we have this transit center that's just a glorified bus shelter. Do any of you guys potentially, you know, envision, or what are your thoughts about maybe a more enhanced or robust transit center, maybe not to the scale of Union Station down in DC, but something, you know, a little bit more formalized where, you know, potentially you could have other uses mixed with it, and potentially relocate the transit center or do you feel, you know, yeah, it should stay where it is, or should it stay on the periphery, or should it potentially be upgraded and integrated into a redevelopment?
I'd like to say something. My name is Kathleen.
Hi, Kathleen.
Hi. And hi, Donna. I know Donna from Seniors in Action.
Hi, Kathleen.
Hi. So the first thing that I think of when I think of Lakeforest is that it's right across from Cider Mill, which is a high crime area. And so anything you do in Lakeforest is going to have to take that into consideration. The bus stop is actually a dangerous place, and somebody was killed there a few years ago. And so I like all of your options, A through C. I like Donna's idea of having some place where you can just hang out, look at the lake. I like the idea of more schools. There's already one down there. I just don't want to choose one of these options without addressing the crime in the area. It's frightening, and you don't want to go to Lakeforest at night.
So we've heard this from a number of different focus groups. So let me put it to the panel this way. Do you think that, you know, crime, whether real or perceived, helps, you know, create the current situation, or does the current situation, you know, a declining mall or even a redevelopment that's, you know, mainly focused on 9 to 5 activity, if you don't have that, you know, almost, you know, not 24 hours a day, but, you know, many hours a day activity and vibrancy and people walking on paths and everything, do you folks believe that can actually help decrease crime? You know, essentially the more eyes and feet on the street lessens opportunity.
Well,
I was kind of picking. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Jessica,
Real
I'll
quick,
call
this
on
is
you
Jessica.
so we can
Sure,
get,
no
we don't
problem.
have to flip the proverbial coin.
Sure. No, I was thinking from a town center perspective. It's interesting that you referenced 9 to 5 because I was thinking of usage where not only do we have the office space, so you are using that Monday, Friday, 9 to 5, but also as a gathering place with, you know, restaurants and family space and free concerts and things in the middle. You're also using the property perhaps in a way that can really make it useful over the weekends as well. And I think by kind of creating that mixed use where you do have both the professional and the recreational space, you're going to have a lot more feet on the ground. I think one of the concerns I have with the way Lakeforest is currently is that there's just not enough people around. Like I could be the only person out there in that parking lot, and it's a little creepy. I totally agree.
Yeah, no,
But
I
I
get you.
think
So,
I think depending on sorry.
oh no, go ahead.
I think depending on how you structure the usage of the property, you know, having more people using it and just foot traffic and traffic in general is going to provide, I think, a sense of community and a sense of safety based on the folks that are there.
Great. Donna, did you want to chime in? I'm sorry.
Yes, no, back to your original question about the transit that ties into it. When you brought up the transit, I thought exactly like Kathleen did, that about the crime there. And a lot of it was that it was rumored or it's as a given really, that there used to be a Starbucks right across the street in one of those little mini malls. And because of the crime is what made it move out. I mean, that's the first place you ever hear of a Starbucks closing. And the idea was that, or the thinking was, whether it's true or not, could be rumor, was that, you know, this, the buses depot there, or shelter, whatever you'd like to call it, did bring a lot of crime, and it gave people a getaway after if they did commit crime in the immediate area. So when you mentioned relocated, I think that might be a good idea. Or when you say transit center, are you just talking bus stop or whatever? I can tell you when I used to work at NIH, I would sometimes take the shuttle there, and you either picked it up there or in the park and ride, and it would go straight to NIH. Well, even though it was easier to get right on at Lakeforest, it was a little creepy for me. So I would go to the other one and get on at the park and ride.
I get you. So for this group, from a master plan, it's hard to write something, you know, we don't want to see creepy. So if we could do a little bit, you know, or dive with this.
Oh, you
what do you think are the
that.
elements that can sort of alleviate? I've always, you know, maybe I'm an internal optimist. I always think a rising tide lifts all boats. So again, as I was mentioning earlier, the opportunities here with the Lakeforest redevelopment can do lots of things for, you know, not only that immediate thing, but you know, the externalities that come with it. So again, as we're sort of talking about, you know, the employment, so we're talking some professional jobs that are 9 to 5, but then we're talking, you know, some retail jobs that may have, you know, softer hard goods. What I'm hearing is restaurants. What we've heard for some other groups is the idea of experiential sort of retail uses, or we've heard of, you know, maybe bringing in, you know, some more civic minded uses, things along those lines that, again, that aren't necessarily the 9 to 5, but promote gathering and interaction and that sense of community. Do you think, you know, the additional green space that you're talking about, things like this, a relocated transit center, if these came to fruition, do you guys feel this would potentially alleviate the quote unquote creepiness that's there?
One thing I'd like to just chime in is that being in Gaithersburg, the need to go to DC or the need to go to Rio to have that experience, if we can bring that in Gaithersburg, people don't really have to go. So we can, in terms of experiential, if we can provide those things, maybe a small lake inside or some area with the rest of the stuff, you know, planned accordingly.
One of the other groups, you know, had
alleviate,
mentioned even retail uses such as, if you've heard of it, hot pots, or the art thing where it's Just an art supply store, but on weekends and evenings, they bring in groups and do paintings and wine. So that's all experiential uses that's different than, let's say, your typical Foot Locker, where if you need a pair of running shoes, you go in there, you buy running shoes, and then you leave.
Yeah, that's exactly what I had in mind. Don't y'all miss restaurants? Oh, don't you miss restaurants? Yeah, that's exactly what I had in mind. And I think a gathering space like that, that's just going to naturally draw more people in, will alleviate the quote unquote creepy factor. As far as the transit center goes, you mentioned, expanding the transit center and adding additional features. And I'm kind of curious what you had in mind there. I mean, I've never used the transit center. I wouldn't say I actively avoid it, but there's no reason for me to stop or poke around there. So I don't really have an opinion on the bus center
for everyone.
itself.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Sure.
You good?
Yeah, good.
So for the transit center, just so everybody's aware, right now, currently it serves 9 ride-on routes that essentially link up county with down county. It also receives it's an end of the line for one of the express buses. And at one point it even had one of the WMATA express buses going there. And the long-term vision is for the Maryland 355, the Frederick Avenue bus rapid transit system. They want this, to also serve that. So there's, it has, right now, let's be candid with everyone with COVID, mass transit ridership's down across the board for everyone. But, all things will change. The hope, the eternal optimist in me. This is a very busy transit center. A lot of people use it to get to jobs. Maybe not necessarily jobs right there, but between the transfers or to get up county or down county or when the BRT comes in. So when I talk about an enhanced, as I mentioned right now, it is literally just 2 posts with a small roof over top of it, and that is the extent of the quote unquote transit center. So I'm not putting forward any specific idea. I just know people have brought up, what we've heard from the groups is they don't want a bus depot. They don't think it's appropriate to store 75 buses here, but they do think something that's maybe a little bit more enclosed, that may have some service retail features within it, or that it can partner. So if you have a transit center on the ground floor and maybe office or residential above it, if they're, get rid of that surface, park and ride lot and do it in a parking garage that's shared with other uses, be it, an office building or some retail or even an apartment, things along those lines. So Kathleen, that's sort of, what I'm trying to explore with this group, is that something that is appealing or not? And there is no right or wrong answer. I'm just sort of synthesizing what we've heard from some other groups and putting it to this panel.
I don't know if you're familiar with Blackrock Center for the Arts in Germantown. It's a really beautiful place. It's next to the new Germantown Library. And rather than a mall type area, they have all kinds of businesses along the street, like a lot of restaurants. And so you can park at Blackrock, go out for dinner, walk down the street, go to dinner, pick up your groceries at the Safeway if you want, go to a show, go out for a drink, and just never go to your car until you're ready to go home. And there's a lot of nighttime activity. That's the kind of thing I'd like to see more of. It's very mixed use.
No, that's great. So also, I guess as part of this design is it safe to assume you guys are promoting, an enhanced, safer pedestrian and maybe bicycle realm within it also? So not just paths associated with parks, but if you have these activated streets and everything, you don't want to have a 4-foot sidewalk or anything. You want to do something with the design to promote that. Is that sort of a safe bet on where you're going?
That sounds really good. A bike path and a lake and get the, there's a car dealer that stores a lot of cars on that parking lot. And if you could get them out of there.
So I think one of the uses we don't want to see is car storage.
That's probably fair. Real quick, touching on the transit center, now that you've explained that a little bit more, as somebody who's kind of pitching the land use as somewhere I go and hang out, I think instead of combining and having additional bus and transit lines in one place. You're not going to like this. The idea would be maybe instead of having one giant hub, if you could diversify it, it might make folks feel more comfortable about coming to a place and hanging out where there's just a lot less people there just to move through.
So right now, let's pretend the mall no longer exists and it's something else. With that comment, and again, I have no opinions. I'm here to listen to you guys. Do you think it's appropriate, because right now, sort of, based upon the way the mall's configured, buses run on the outer rim. If we split this up and, sort of divided things, do you see potentially buses going through this redevelopment? Or do you feel they should stay out and, the stops should basically be, on Lost Knife or Odenhall or Russell?
I don't.
I think I would prefer to have that outside. Sorry, come on.
Yes, I agree on the outside, not only because of the traffic, but also because of the fumes and all the, chemicals that will damage the buildings and stuff like that. So.
Okay, great. So we've talked about transit. We seem sort of unified in the idea that everybody's, pro park, additional green space, and to somehow better integrate the existing stormwater management ponds, sort of bring them into the redevelopment and not as an afterthought. Employment opportunities, we're looking for some experiential things that promote, feet on the street at multiple hours, but you also like that thinks that we should sort of leverage the R&D market and, potentially bring in some professional jobs. So I'm hearing, we want to try to pursue a continuum of type of jobs. We've talked about a school. Are there any other civic uses or anything like that? Some people have brought up, incubator space or job training, or to see if there's, ability to do educational satellite campuses, anything like that strike you? Or what we've sort of talked about so far should be more than enough when you only have 80 acres to work with?
So one question I had, what is the allowed level by the county? How many stories can we have? So there's one part of me saying that we might be able to get like high-rise buildings there to pack more offices and other amenities. I don't know.
Oh, we can definitely get high-rise. So again, if we went this way, the city would probably have to, this property would have, in total would have to probably be rezoned to what's called MXD, mixed-use development. And there is no residential density cap with those. There's no real height restrictions because it's really internalized. Commercial development is capped at a 0.75 floor area ratio, which, if you're not familiar with it, is just a way to, to balance, square footage. But an FAR on 80 acres, I don't think we could ever build out to that ultimate. So we're not worried about, not having the ability to do density, if that helps sort of explain. So Kamal, if where you're going, I'm happy to broach this topic because we've talked about a lot of stuff except for A. So that's really coming into the housing discussion. Do we need housing here? Do we need a lot of housing here? Do you view it as high density, high rise, sort of where you're going, housing here? So, I want to throw that out to the panel. I know we've talked about missing middle, things like that, but now there's a little bit more nuance. So we have, again, do we want to have, the carpets, if we all go totally commercial, do we want to have, the carpets rolled up at certain hours? Or is a housing component important to, once again, remove the creepiness, quote unquote, that we were talking about earlier?
I think a housing component has to be part of it. I mean, I'm looking around going, please, no more people, but you're saying there's like $7 grand more coming. So
yeah,
or the need for housing is at least that high.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jessica.
No, I was going to say, I think there has to be some type of housing component involved just to kind of sustain the off hours from like working hours.
Do you foresee that as being, a multifamily product, townhomes, or are we sort of going back to some of the stuff that was talked about earlier? I think it was Donna who mentioned the missing middle. So is there an opportunity here to maybe introduce housing products that currently aren't found within the city of Gaithersburg, you know, sort of like the villa complex or 3/1s or quadplexes?
Yeah, I think the missing middle would be kind of preferred, but I'm trying to, maybe it's just because there isn't a lot of that in this area. I'm trying to like picture what that would be like, and I'm struggling.
Yeah, we struggle too. We can look at pictures and then trying to figure out how it actually works with the layout, but we know people are doing it. So Donna,
I mean, I think that, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. No, go ahead, please.
I think that missing middle would be preferred because I feel like that's kind of the slice that's missing from the area. And to create the space for that to move in would be fantastic. But I don't know that's the best use of the property.
Mm-hmm. So with this discussion of housing, because our friend Donna brought it up first, I want to shoot back to her to see if she has any thoughts.
Well, just what I had said before, I agree with that, but I would not like to see, I'll tell you what I don't want, high rise. And I don't like the boxy look, and whatever they come up with, I hope it's attractive rather than a box over a box over a box. But I would hate to see high rises, really.
Okay.
That's personal opinion.
That is why we were here. We want to hear from everyone. So anybody else have any thoughts? I also
like to tie in the housing, though. I just want to bring this up. How does that affect the traffic in an already dense area?
We would have to look at it once hard numbers come in. But this is sort of where, you know, if we are, you know, talking about if you create a community where you can live, work, and play, you know, that reduces some transportation. We heard, you know, you had brought up, you know, the importance of connectivity. You know, if we make some of these road crossings, be it Lost Knife or Odenhall or Russell, safer, you know, maybe we get more people walking and biking in the immediate area. And, you know, as transit opportunities, if we, you know, get rid of the creepiness and develop, you know, maybe better transit stops, whether it's in a centralized station or dispersed throughout, maybe we can encourage more people to use transit. So I get where you're coming from. And if you know, took our surveys, you know, we asked questions, you know, what's more important, single occupancy vehicles or some of these, you know, trying to promote other modes. So I guess I'm hearing from you, we should be trying to promote other modes.
Well, not necessarily. If you're it depends how much housing you're going to put there. But I don't want to get off base on it, but I would like to, when you talk about transit and rapid bus and all that, I would love to see some of that tie in to the MARC train things. Mm-hmm. People could take a bus and transfer to a train or be near that and at least make it feasible, you know?
That was brought up in an earlier forum today. People were talking about the importance when they were talking of connectivity to connect to the Old Town MARC station and maybe explore opportunities to better provide, you know, bike ped linkages between the redeveloped Lakeforest and Old Town.
And that's kind of what I was thinking when I was talking about diversifying the bus routes as well. Like if we had a couple of them go to Old Town instead of all of them come in to the mall site.
Gotcha. Cool. So with this question, again, what I'm sort of hearing is the emphasis is on jobs. We need some sort of housing component, but housing shouldn't necessarily, you know, be the predominant land use. We do want to see parks. We understand that retail, you know, both goods and experiential is important. You know, we have to look at the greater community to make sure we connect with that. We want to improve. You know, but, you know, the pedestrian environment, we may need a school. Am I missing anything else, folks, or have I pretty much captured, you know, sort of a collective worldview of our panel?
Excuse me, Rob, this is
Yes.
Kathleen. I'd like to see more housing for seniors.
Okay.
I'm in my 70s right now. I bought a townhouse in Montgomery Village 15 years ago, and I'm very happy with it. But I understand from some of my friends that even with construction that's going to start across the street on Montgomery Village Avenue, that there is nothing special set aside for seniors. And I think that that's a problem because as we age, we're looking for some place where we can continue to be independent.
Gotcha. So age and place. So let's explore this a little bit more. So when we were talking about jobs, the panel sort of talked about, it could be very important, to provide a variety of jobs. As it relates to housing, we've talked about missing middle. Obviously, we have on our panel retirees to young families. So there's different things. How important is with the housing component to sort of be a mixed income, mixed age housing development?
Well, I'm eating a cookie, so I didn't speak. I think it's very important. It's very important. I love my neighborhood because I have people from all over the world and all ages, and I would like to see more of that.
Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts?
I completely agree.
I agree.
Cool.
Yep.
I'm sort of happy when I hear panels agree on something good like this.
Nailed it, Kathleen. Nailed it.
We would accept it, but we would be worried if all we heard was, I only want people in this bracket. So,
I mean, the way I see it, you want to have a small world in itself and everybody well represented to have a wholesome community. And that's what we are looking for. And that will reduce the other element, the negative element, so to speak.
mm-hmm. Gotcha. And then sort of, to use a little planning buzzword based upon what Donna said, is it accurate to say for you guys, so you've talked about other areas in the city or in Rockville, should this redevelopment have its own unique sense of place? Donna sort of alluded to, and we see it all the time, everybody sometimes comes in with an apartment, they all look like the same exact architecture. Should this redevelopment really strive to set itself apart, or would you guys be fine with it, in a very simplistic sense, mimicking Crown or mimicking Kentlands or King Farm or Rockville Town Center, in look and feel?
I would be comfortable if it mimics something like Rio. Like,
Okay.
give me the path in the lake of Rio, and give me Rockville Town Square.
Okay.
But it has.
I think
everybody
as far
else
as
has been talking. You can't leave me hanging on this one.
I think even though generally speaking it can have those elements, a little bit of lake and fire and wind and water, but at the same time it has to have a unique appeal that's nowhere to be found, and that's the selling point. That's the thing that will attract everybody to it, of all ages and all denominations, that this is where we want to be. If we stand out, if this stands out, then that'll be the major factor.
Great. Donna or Kathleen, any thoughts on this topic? The sense of place. Donna, you already said you don't want to see boxes upon boxes. You don't want to see a Legoland.
I would like to see just something, again, attractive, because I think it's missing. And I think it's such a great opportunity. You're in a area that's good for, commuting, to get to different places. And we've been waiting a really, really long time for this redevelopment to happen. So I would be happy with a fraction of what we've talked about on this call. But I agree. I like the Rio, the lake and the walking path, and the Rockville Town Center. I'd be thrilled with that.
Great.
Or have a commercial football field there, have games. That's a crazy idea, but something.
It's not crazy. You'd be surprised how many different focus groups have mentioned, either an indoor sports venue, an outdoor sports venue, theaters, real theaters, things like that. So again, before we move on to question 2, if this has sparked any ideas with anyone, feel free.
Oh, please put in a public amphitheater. Nobody else has one of those around here.
Oh, actually, there is one in Montgomery Village, right down the street. Is
there really?
Yes, it's called the Lawn Theater. And for a long time, it was just a building and a slab of cement. And then they put in some roof-like things. I don't know how to describe it. and the lawn slopes down and it's fenced in and it's just wonderful. And we missed it this year because of COVID. And they did the same thing at Blackrock. They had a stage, and then you sat on the lawn, brought your food, brought your wine, whatever, and listened to free music. And it was just wonderful. So I really like your idea of having a place like that.
And don't forget, we do have an amphitheater right out front of City Hall here in Gaithersburg.
Right.
Yeah, yes.
Prior to COVID, we had free bands
Yes.
on Friday nights. So.
Aw.
But I get where you're
Okay,
coming from. You're looking for something that better integrates with this redevelopment.
Yeah, let me clarify. Give me that's terrible. Just don't record that part. Give me one of those that's surrounded by restaurants and other venues. Let me go get my kids some marble slab.
I knew exactly where you
while
were
I drink
going,
a
my
beer.
friend.
Yeah. Okay.
It ties into the greater experiential thing you guys were discussing earlier.
Yeah, about a couple of years ago, I had this experience. I went to Kentlands and there was a concert, and I think it started 9:30 or something. It's a little late for kids, but I saw kids playing around, and it gave me a sense of, my mind was saying, well, I've died and this is heaven.
Yeah.
If we can have that sort of an experience where everybody is so peaceful and the kids are playing and the music is playing, some sort of that experience all the time, then that's it. That's the message, that it's a safe place to be, and it's an enjoyable place to be, and it's a useful place.
I think of that
I
as
think
being
that's a
very,
great vision across the board for everywhere if we could get that.
it feels very old fashioned, to be able to just go out, hang out, listen to something free, and then just maybe walk home. It's really such a nice idea.
And I completely agree as well. I picture Rockville Town Square with the cultural festivals and the concerts on Friday night where everyone stands up and dances. You feel safe there. You feel safe there because you're surrounded by people who are just kind of looking out for each other. You get that overall impression. And the cultural festivals and, the 4th of July parades.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. All right, let's move on a bit now. And I think we've question 2, you guys have touched on a lot of aspects of this, but given the world the way it is today, and rightly so, things that have come more into focus, the question is, in what ways can a Lakeforest redevelopment support social equity, diversity, and sustainability efforts? And again, it may seem redundant because all of you guys have nibbled at the edges about this. I think maybe we're just sort of looking, I guess, to help get this ball rolling. Is this mix of housing, mixed ages, mixed incomes, does that in and of itself promote social equity? Does a diverse job pool, the jobs that are being offered, does that support the equity and diversity? Does, these gathering spaces, and I know you may be sitting there because I can't see you rolling your eyes going, of course, Rob, it does. But I want to put it out there and really hear from you guys. Or are there other things that could happen in a redevelopment that proffer and push forward these efforts and concepts?
I just want to hit on sustainability for a second, because I think if you create a place like that, that's 2 minutes from my house, then I'm not driving 25 minutes to go to it somewhere else. Mm-hmm. I think if you create jobs that are going to keep people who live in the community, they're not going all the way to DC 5 days a week, or no days a week right now. Mm-hmm. So I think having that type of space here that doesn't exist, be it the middle income housing, be it shared space for people of all ages, I think anything you can do to create a space where people live in the community and stay in the community is ultimately going to promote sustainability.
Awesome. Anybody else?
I think we need to talk about environmental sustainability as well.
Sure.
You have an opportunity to start from scratch with things like permeable pavement and I'm not exactly sure what to say, but I hope you get the idea.
Well, maybe let me help you, Kathleen, with the concept on that. So with the master plan, as I mentioned, we can talk about elements we want to see or maybe don't want to see. So to your point, where does the panel sit? If there is this, large employment, construct, there's going to need to be parking. So should we really, the master plan, really make an effort to minimize large surface parking lots like you see out there, which, candidly, oftentimes we've heard, contributes to the creepiness factor. People don't like walking across large fields of empty parking lots. Should we be emphasizing, structured parking as the way to go? And with these other improved other modes, be it pedestrian, bike paths, transit, will that help? So does that sort of help you sort of narrow in the focus?
Yeah, how about multi-level parking, as in other places where the parking itself is not seen, is not visible. So it's not that ugly.
Oh yeah, internalized, structured parking, obviously can happen depending upon, the uses around it. But just at a more macro level concept for this panel, do you have qualms about excessive surface parking lots?
Yeah, it's a waste of space. I come from Florida. You can't go down. You hit water, but you can do that here.
Donna, Kathleen, any thoughts on surface parking lots?
I don't know why I'm thinking about solar panels right now.
No, that's great. One of the things we can write in the master plan is that, things, design should be done to accommodate solar, both on commercial and residential. I think it's great.
I have wind power at my house, and I don't, people think I have a wind turbine in my backyard. And I said, no, Pepco buys its power from a wind farm, and that's where I get my power, and just ridiculously low payments every month. I think that would be something that would attract people if they knew that they were helping with climate change.
And also, do you think that could contribute to the equity and diversity factor? One of the discussions we've had, folks, with many of the focus groups is this discussion of affordable housing, but not really affordable housing as in a regulation or a law, but more housing affordability. And this sort of ties into your guys' discussion about the missing middle, to be able to attract, workers, not white collar necessarily, but, teachers, firemen, nurses, everybody else that, is there a thing? So if you can figure out ways, Kathleen, to your point, to reduce overall housing costs or transportation costs, that makes housing in and of itself more affordable.
Exactly, you're right.
Okay, so any other thoughts on this question, the equity, the diversity, the sustainability? So obviously what I'm hearing is from you guys, we should be writing in something about, trying to attain our sustainability environmental goals, expressed in our environment and sustainability master plan through this redevelopment. We've talked about that, the mix of housing, the missing middle contributes to social equity. Kamal very eloquently talked about the joy of communal gathering, to be part of a diverse that comes together as one. Are we missing anything else in this discussion?
This is Donna, I would just like to bring up about when we say a mix of income housing. I don't know exactly what the definition is, because when I hear these moderately priced dwelling units where you have to be almost earning nothing to qualify for them, what do you exactly mean by a mix of units? Would it be affordable to a wide range of people?
Yeah, so again, what we've sort of been framing is, the code is the code. So, any sort of housing that comes in has to meet our technical affordable housing program. But what we're really talking about is the housing affordability that, if you're a young family, do you have opportunity? If you're fresh out of college, will there be a place for you with your first job to through units? Everything comes in the lowest housing price is $650,000. I don't know how many people, can afford that for a townhome. So it's really trying to find these mixed incomes. So again, you may have the millionaires living there, but is it so wrong that a block away is somebody who earns $80,000 a year? So again, we're not necessarily talking the affordable housing program with MPDUs. We're talking about housing opportunities to bring a broad spectrum of workers with different incomes together living in the same community.
Based on what you described, I
Right.
picture that as the missing middle.
Yeah, and candidly, that's where a lot of professionally in the planning world, that's where the discussion is going.
And I haven't seen that with the other developments at all. If you look at what's been developed recently, even like downtown Crown, I guess that they are. You said 650,000. I don't for a new townhouse. That's pushing it. Usually they're advertising for condos at that price. So yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Great. No, that's fantastic. So again, and sometimes I seem to repeat myself, but I just want to make sure, I'm not losing sight of where sort of the panel's brain is. So diversity, the missing middle to get, this, for lack of a term, unofficial workforce housing, to be able to handle the everyman, for lack of a better term, is important. We've talked about the various types of jobs and opportunities that should be presented, the green space, the gathering, designing this in such a way that it can leverage new and emerging technologies, both in the housing cost front, such as solar or wind, potentially an amphitheater. So some of these, gathering spaces that may be low cost, no cost to anyone. The importance of restaurants, that it sounds like you guys are with the Rockville Town Center. There should be some sort of hub, a main, either it be it a strip or a square or something that sort of is, the catalyzing center that everything else comes from. Am I sort of, summarizing where everybody's head is with this?
That sounds great.
Yeah, I'm ready to move in.
That's excellent. So before we move on from question 2, is there any other thoughts or anything, based upon question 1 or 2, or any of the various topics we brought up that you'd like to further explore before we move on to question 3?
I'll just throw out something real quick. When you talked about the energy and the sustainability, I'd like to see some new way of thinking. Like, for example, in one of the missing middles that went up in a very small area, there were only 8 units in Virginia. What they did was have a small community house, and they put solar panels on that community house so that if anybody had to shelter in place, they could go to this central area and have some power. So, and there was a little, small kitchen in it. I just thinking in that way, about sheltering in place or doing those type things and what can you do with solar, I don't have the answer. I'm just throwing it out there.
No, this is why we do these, my friend, is we want people to throw stuff out. Everything's going to stick at some point. So it's better to start being able to explore thoughts that may not have come to others. So again, we're hearing this should be a community that appeals to families, that appeals to retirees, that appeals to people just starting out in their life. So that sounds great. The sustainability. So we got that. We seem to feel that, the rising tide lifts all boats. If this comes in, some of the negative perceptions, be they, real or not, in the surrounding area, may be alleviated, that this will get rid of, the quote unquote creepiness factor. So we're moving forward. So with that, with question 3, I think for the first half of this question, we know what we think is a successful redevelopment. So my tough question to the panel is, and there's a bunch of different, subsets to this, how long would you wait to achieve the success? And by the same token, so let me flesh this out for you. So Crown Farm, for example, was annexed into the city in late 2005, started going through the planning process, went into bankruptcy, was bought out of bankruptcy in 2010. It's now 2020. It's 10 years later. There still has a school to be built. There's still a pad site in neighborhood 1 to be built. Neighborhood 3 is only coming online. So, that's 10 years. The Watkins Mill Town Center has, all of its residential built, but hasn't even started on its commercial core, and that's been 14 years. The Kentlands Commercial District Master Plan took 10 years for the first sketch plan to come in based upon that master plan. But by the same token, that master plan is what encouraged Kimco to purchase that whole shopping center and begin doing stuff. So from typically from a long-range planning perspective, there's a reason it's called long range. It takes time. So really what I want to explore with this panel is, for you guys, how long is reasonable? And maybe more importantly, how long do you expect to wait before you see some sort of movement on this? So where I'm going, what we've heard from a lot of focus groups is, and panels, is they feel it's very important that something begin to occur within the next 3 to 5 years.
I have a thought on this. Success to me would mean that the energy or the vision that is created by this will affect the surrounding areas, and they will change as well. So this change will propagate to where the bridge is, or even out across from it, until Shady Grove, until that, almost touching Rockville. So if this change affects other businesses, that would be, to me, that would be a success. Now, how long would that take? Maybe 10 to 15 years. But I would say that in 5 years, we should see something concrete in Lakeforest, or maybe a rebranding of it, rebrand Lakeforest into something else.
Okay. Anybody else?
I think that I would like to see the walkway, lake type thing, those gathering spaces as earlier in the development rather than later. And I mean, I would like to see it, of course, as quick as possible, but this has been going on for a decade now, and we get what we got. So I'd like to see some movement, but I don't think it should just be the houses without the other things to support them.
Great. Kathleen or Jessica, what are your thoughts? When should we begin? What is realistic to begin seeing some sort of traction?
I'm going to step back from this because I honestly don't know.
Okay, that's fine.
What's realistic? I don't know what's realistic, but I can tell you what I'd like. I think 3 to 5 years, we have to see something happening with the property. Like literally as long as I've lived in the community, it's been the Lakeforest it is today. I never got to experience it in its glory days. So I agree that if some movement is made on the land, and at least to a certain degree, a portion of it is changed so that there are walking and biking trails and places for people to be while construction's ongoing, it's going to make the property more useful than it is right now.
Gotcha. So let me put this out to the group, because this came up in another panel. Pardon me. So say we're approaching the 3-year mark. Do you feel government, be it federal, this is an opportunity zone, state, this is an enterprise zone, county or the city, do you think if it begins approaching 3 years that government action can help spur this traction? So even if it's, we talked about connectivity between Old Town and Lakeforest, well, those roads are either city roads or county roads. So, municipal investment or government investment, do you think that is something that should definitely be considered to help get this ball moving?
I'm going to say yes. Sorry, go.
I would just consider anything that would help it move along. And I thought it was zoned as an enterprise zone.
It is an enterprise zone, so there's tax advantages, but even more. So we're just doing, the doom and gloom aspect, that we're 2.5 years after the master plan's adopted, and we don't even have a trail yet. So I'm sort of asking, at that point, should some level of government step in and start getting the ball moving?
Yeah, and I would put it in the, I don't know what the owners have in mind or what they proposed, but I would, make that clear that here's what we'd like to, see here. This is the ideal. Maybe they're thinking something totally different.
Mm-hmm. Jessica, I think you were going to jump in.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know how to best answer that. Sorry.
Oh no, it's fine. It's a lot of these are tough questions. I'm putting you guys on the spot. We've only met, a little over an hour ago, and I'm asking you, how to spend tax dollars. So I get it. I understand.
I mean,
so
I think when it comes to proposing that there's a school included and nothing's happening in the surrounding community, absolutely.
Okay. Come on, I see you have a thought?
Yeah, so I would ask that what is the government incentive? They have a different perspective on this. So what is their perspective? We would like to know first.
I can't speak to it because again, this is we're in the fact finding. As we begin to wind up, I'll tell you about the next step processes and what's going to occur. Again, I don't know necessarily. I've spoken with focus groups to various individual county agencies, that are focused on a specific facet, but holistically, where the state sits or the county sits or even the city is going to express its vision through this master plan. So that's why we want to hear from you and other people. So the council and planning commission can really debate, what is the vision. So I think everybody at a government level is sort of at a blank slate right now and is really trying to take in, where's the world going? What do we know? What has in a sense survived through COVID so far? What assumptions prior to COVID, do we think will still hold true? Where is the community's mind at? What are their priorities? So I wish I had an answer for you. I wish I had an answer for myself because that would make some things more easy. But this is sort of why we're going through this exercise.
Yeah, because I think it's important for alignment to occur to reduce the dissonance. If the county and the city, and I'm not saying they're perfectly aligned, but in somewhat way, the vision is sort of aligned, then you'll see less and less friction in whatever you're proposing go through. And getting everybody interested in your vision because it aligns with something. If it is not, then you'll have a hard time.
Gotcha.
That's how I see it.
No, that's great. Anybody else? Or now that you've seen all three questions, is there something else you want to talk about? Is it, has this prompted some thought? Do you want to revisit any of the previous questions? We're about, an hour and 15 minutes in. We had scheduled 2 hours. Thinking we'd have a much larger group, but you guys have been fantastic. 4 people are, filling the gap of 20 people. So this is great. but again, I know I don't want to keep everybody, late just to say we were here for 2 hours.
Yeah. One quick question I had before my wife calls me is that what is happening to the old golf course? Because there are other businesses and other real estate that is also ties into this. As Gaithersburg, as a city, where is this going? I actually have no idea.
So the Montgomery Village Master Plan was done partially to facilitate the redevelopment of the golf course that's farther up 124. Going to one of our earlier discussions about housing units and the appropriate, what's planned there is like 500 single family homes. No multifamily. It's all going to be townhomes or single family detached.
Got it.
Right, but they're also doing some things in Montgomery Village Center, where there will be these 2-over-2s and some townhomes there, as well as the golf course, but also retail, and bringing in some grocery stores in that.
Yeah, they've making a real effort. So again, that's sort of what we have to contemplate with this Lakeforest as we talk about, carving the niche. I guess, a question that maybe I didn't ask you as explicitly as I have some other focus groups. How important is it to you guys that this redevelopment, in a sense, doesn't cannibalize or take away from successful existing businesses in other places in the city or in the immediate area? So again, what I'm trying to say is, say we had, big box store A, and it's already existing in a community and it's there, and Lakeforest comes in and everybody wants to be, with the shiny new toy. So that gets up and moves and then leaves a gap behind that can't be filled. Is that a concern of yours? Should it be a concern of the cities? Or I know you guys had talked about, that this should have a unique sense of place, but this really comes down to, should it really try to find uses that don't draw away from other existing centers?
I'm not
We have-
necessarily concerned with it drawing from other centers, because I don't think, like, all the things we've been describing as far as like town center style, I don't think we have one of those right here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anybody else?
Right across Montgomery Village Avenue, they just opened a new Aldi. And on the other side from Aldi is going to be a Lidl, which is also a grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
And in the master plan, I forget the reason for it, but apparently the competition is good. And I can walk to both of them, so I don't care. But I think a store that goes up in Lakeforest is probably going to have a different audience than a big box store someplace else. But I think it's good for competition.
Okay. Donna or Kamal, any thoughts on this topic?
No, I agree. It's competition is good. It's healthy.
Okay.
I would like to see some things, some restaurant choices other than fast food type things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think that was pretty clear with everyone. When we were talking about restaurants, I wasn't assuming that you guys were talking about something that has a drive-through or that you can supersize. I assumed you guys were talking about real restaurants.
in the Village Mall, there's a Lito's Pizza, and there's a McDonald's, and then there's an Einstein bagel place, and that's it for food. All of the restaurants that we had earlier, we had a nice Chinese restaurant, a Salvadorian restaurant, like a deli sandwich type place. They all went out of business.
Silver Diner at the mall and all those type restaurants.
I love Ruby Tuesday.
Okay.
And that's gone.
Yeah, same. We drive a couple exits up to hit the Red Robin now.
The all-you-can-eat fries.
Yeah,
Don't judge me, man. Don't judge.
I'm not judging. I told you this is a judge-free zone. I'm just here to solicit comments. But I think we're all familiar with the bottomless fries, all-you-can-eat fries at Red Robin, including the fried egg burger. So I think we've all experienced
there you
it at
go.
one point or another. Yes.
Yeah, anytime I want to have a good experience, food experience, I have to go to Virginia. And that's a very long drive, and the kids get tired. It's not overall. The food is good, but it's not an overall good experience.
I got you, my friend. So anything else that I've missed that we haven't touched on, or again something that's struck you? We're rapidly approaching 8 o'clock, so I know people want to get moving on with their lives.
Just one thing I want to point. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Jessica. I wanted to say that I remember when Lakeforest was new, and we lived in Bethesda, so it was pretty far, but it was a big deal. And I wonder if you could find out what it was that made it a big deal so that you could make the new development a big deal. I don't know if that's helpful.
No, we're always looking for something. So yeah, and sometimes I think it is, a lot of what you guys have discussed, that if this place carves out its own unique niche and brings to this area of the city and this area of the county, stuff that otherwise you would have to travel to, that was sort of the original allure of this first enclosed mall in '72. There was nothing else like it around. Now there's more competition, be it, driving up to Clarksburg to the outlet mall, or going to Milestone where there's big boxes, or down to Washingtonian Rio. There's a lot more competition in the area. So again, I think to what you guys were discussing, this redevelopment has to reinvent itself in its uniqueness. It has to create that unique sense of place.
Exactly.
And
Jessica,
I was going to say,
my friend?
Yeah. I was going to say, as it pertains to these meetings that you're holding, I kind of bumped into a notification about it while I was goofing off from work today. I had no idea you guys were having this meeting, and I'm really surprised that only 4 people showed up. I know you guys are having another round of these, and I just wanted to suggest maybe reaching out to some local content creators like Moco Show and asking if they could retweet what you're doing or repost it on Facebook and that kind of thing, and maybe you can garner. Yeah.
We've been trying, and what we think is, candidly, in many ways, I think some people may be getting Lakeforest fatigue. We have a survey, we've gotten over 3,000 responses to that. We mailed out 7,000 paper surveys to every residential unit within a half mile of Lakeforest Mall. We've been peppering stuff between Moco Show, our own social media. Sometimes it's tough. So, we were sort of surprised, but we weren't fully surprised. And we're playing next week we're playing it by ear.
Yeah.
If participation, stays where we only have one person, I can't really call that a forum. That's more of a, a one-on-one conversation. So you guys have been fantastic, and we were lucked out. Even earlier today, we had very low turnout, but very engaged. So it was more than one person. So at least there was this healthy dialogue of spurring thought, not just from me trying to elicit statements from you, but you guys feeding off one another. It's been fantastic. But I think as it gets farther and farther, and who knows what fatigue people will have after Tuesday's election, I don't know if they're going to necessarily be focusing on Lakeforest Mall.
One quick thought I had regarding European spaces that they have for public spaces is that in terms of experience. So outside dining, not so much outside coffee places, we tend to be mostly inside. So if we can bring at least for 5 months, the sort of experience outside of it. So it's an outdoorsy kind of an experience with other things blended into it. That might create more of a good experiential thing.
I agree with you, my friend. And I think, if there's any positives to take away from COVID, I think a lot of people have learned to appreciate what's called quote unquote cafe culture. When so many restaurants had to solely go to outdoor seating, the sense is, and I don't know what you guys experience, but I live up in the Baltimore area. A lot of people have really taken to it. So even if, once this goes away through vaccine or whatever, I don't necessarily see, the outdoor seating, curbside pickup, all these sort of, pedestrian things going away necessarily.
Yeah. I'm hopeful that once this goes away, we'll have a more sense of closeness with other people, and to appreciate them, and a sense of love and belonging, because for such a long time we are held in captive under this extreme conditions.
I gotcha. Donna, were you going to say something, my friend?
It was Kathleen. I was going to say, if there's anything good about this pandemic, it's that it started in the spring and we were able to get outside for many months while we kind of put our lives in some kind of order and said, now we're going to be doing this, now we're going to be doing that. And so with the cold weather coming on, we've kind of gotten into a routine, whereas if it had started in the cold days when we couldn't get outside, I think we all would have lost our minds.
Yeah, I agree. And, my coworkers who are on this call with me may think I already have, so I know they're happy that I'm in the office and getting out of my house. So I hear you. I think we're on the same page. So if we pretty much have vetted, from your guys' perspective, everything, I want to start, sort of working towards the conclusion of this evening. And, first of all, I want to really thank you. Truly, you guys have been great. Lots of great ideas. I appreciate, in this day and age, the civility and decorum you guys carried yourselves with. I think that was fantastic. So timeline-wise, what we're working on. All of our engagement stuff basically ends next Friday, November 6th. If you haven't yet, please go to our project page, gaithersburgmd.gov/Lakeforest. There's lots of background material, so you'll sort of understand where some of my comments or questions came from this evening when you look at that. Also, our survey is still up until noon next Friday the 6th. It's 20 questions. It explores in different ways a lot of the stuff we discussed this evening. When we end this evening, if something strikes you, as you're, watching TV or driving to work, feel free to email us. We have a unique email address, lakeforestmp@gaithersburgmd.gov. Feel free to send us any questions or comments. So why are we ending stuff next Friday? Well, essentially, we got to begin collating all the various, responses, surveys, focus groups, data, everything we've gotten, because we're working towards a joint work session on December 14th, 2020. This is a joint work session with our mayor and city council and our planning commission. At that work session, staff is going to be presenting all the various findings, all the input. And we're probably going to be, presenting what we think our recommendations for what to include in the master plan should be, based upon our knowledge of the studies that are on the project page and all the input we've taken and what seems to be realistic. We are hoping to come out of that work session with guidance from the Planning Commission and the council going, yes, this is the vision we want for this master plan, and these are items we'd like to see included in the master plan. I want to make you aware, joint work sessions are public meetings. So, typically we allow public comment. After the work session, we'll begin writing. The goal is, state law requires once you have a draft done, you have to put it out for public comment for 60 days. We are hoping that we will be done and be able to enter the 60-day comment period late February, early March. Yet again, 60 days, that is another opportunity for engagement and for comment. At the end of the 60 days, that then goes to a joint public hearing again with our council and our planning commission, where they will review all the comments received, over that 60-day period, and we'll be, begin debating that. It's a public hearing, yet another opportunity for engagement. So if you're picking up on a theme, there is a theme. Do not feel that when we log off tonight, that's it, we're done. I would encourage everyone to stay engaged throughout this process. Our project page is going to remain open throughout the entire process. So while the survey may get turned off, we will be posting things like all the survey results. As things come up, when meetings or keystone meetings come up, we will be providing links to that on the project page. The draft document will be, when we finally are ready for comment, be able to put that up there. So this is a living, breathing project page. And because of your interest in showing the participation this evening, I would really like you to continue over the next 9 months with us to stay engaged and stay on top. So again, big things, go to our project page, take the survey if you haven't. Something strikes you, email us a question or email us a comment. Keep track. The next big milestone event is the joint work session. And from there, and again, from my perspective, thank you very much for this evening. And I think, to sort of wind this up, I will turn it over to you guys for any last minute thoughts. And if you guys are good, then otherwise I will let you continue on with your evening as it's almost 8 o'clock.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. You've been great.
Thank
Great.
you. We
Thank you.
won't make you stay any longer.
Okay. Awesome.
Thanks, Ron. Take care. Bye.
Bye,
Thanks, guys.
everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.